Hi friends! Welcome to the Overcomers, a movement and a group of people who have overcome and they've got a story. That's what the Overcomers is all about. You sharing your story. Why? Because there is power in your story and people need you. They need your voice. They need your story of hope, faith, and inspiration that where they're at right now is not the end. They need to know if you can overcome, so can they. Today, I'm excited to share with you another story of one such overcomer. So let's go check out who it is. I'm honored to be here today with my friend, Jenn Kimura. Jenn, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm honored. I'm really grateful for the opportunity.
It's awesome to have you here. So a few things about my awesome friend for those that are listening that might not know who she is. Jenn has seen her life come full circle. She's overcome so many things, from child molestation, addiction, trauma, just to name a few. And she's actually writing a book right now about her journey, which I am so freaking excited to get my hands on. It's going to be powerful. Jenn has worked many jobs she never imagined having the opportunity to do, including right now working for the House of Cherith, that is a safe house for women who have come out of sex trafficking. Jenn has seen her life be redeemed. It's a testimony to what the Father has done in a life and can do in your life. But what I'm blown away most by, Jenn, in your story is your heart for the Father and your heart for others. I still remember the day I first met you and sharing dinner at the airport right before we both attended the same conference. Listening to your story that day, I was so amazed. I was amazed at your vulnerability, your transparency, and how inspiring you were. You didn't hide anything. You simply craved authenticity. And you had just met me. You were fearless, raw, and I knew that day that I wasn't going to be the last person who saw that when they met you. On day one, I saw what redemption had done in your story. Your love for the Father is real, deep, and passionate. And because of diving in like you have, what he has done in your life and is continuing to do is spilling over to so many people around you who desperately need the same hope, the same restart, and the same light that you once did. I cannot wait for those that are listening now and getting the chance to hear your story, because it's powerful and people need it. They need your story of hope, faith, and inspiration, that where they're at right now is not the end for them either. That if you can overcome, so can they. You're an overcomer, and I'm honored that you joined with us today. So Jenn, take us back there. Tell us your story. How did you go from where you once were to who you are now?
First, I got to say, woo, what an intro. Wow, what a host. I feel so blessed. Goodness gracious. But yes, I definitely am finally embracing the term overcomer and really embracing God's love and encouragement in that it's not egotistical to call myself that I'm not taking the credit, but it's definitely, I'm always giving credit where credit's due. It's his story in my life for sure. So my life story, we're going to start from the beginning, little tiny Jenn. As far back as I can remember, at around 2-3 years old, I had always felt like I was not a good kid. I was destined to go to hell. There were certain things happening that I took responsibility for. And I remember making this conscious decision that, like, I cannot tell anybody. I can't tell my parents, because I was born and raised in a Christian family. My parents are immigrants. They're from Brazil. We are 100% Japanese by blood. They were born and raised in Brazil. So I felt like I would be letting them down. Like, their dream of coming here was for naught. Like, they failed. I didn't want to do that. So I grew up, we're talking high school, and that was when I was still aware of like those memories from my childhood. But somehow my first year of college, like I completely forgot. Like when I say completely forgot, I'm telling you like zero recollection of any of all of those memories from my childhood at all. They somehow got locked away deep inside my brain. And I truly believe it was the Lord that did that and for his divine purpose. And we'll get to that point later on. So my first year of college was when I got my first boyfriend, and we were sleeping together, and I started experimenting with drinking and drugs. And it was like, the normal stuff that people typically get into when they're young. And my parents couldn't understand. They were quite strict and traditional when I was growing up. So I really felt like they were rejecting me because they didn't want to get to know me. And ultimately, this lie of this, of my childhood, of my life, that I can't talk to them, and I can't tell them that they won't understand, became truth in my heart to the point where it's like, no, they're just against me. They just don't want to know me. They don't care. They don't really love me. They will never understand. So eventually, like, I started getting into hard drugs. I didn't see it as hard drugs because my generation really sees it as a party drug. So like uppers, Molly, ecstasy, and stuff like that. But what I didn't realize was the usage of that um, uh, on a daily basis is actually, addiction. And really, I was just chasing feeling better. I didn't want to feel this like, dull depression that was behind my life. And I remember I got kicked out of, like out of houses, of places that I lived in. My parents kicked me out a bunch of times. My aunt and uncle kicked me out because I just was not making wise decisions. And like at the time, all I could see was where they were wrong. And I couldn't like grasp anyone else's needs but my own. So when someone's in pain, I find that they tend to be very selfish. And I like it's caused me to have a lot more empathy for people who are selfish, because I'm like, where's that coming from? Because I've been there. So I'm leading this life where I have these friends, and they were the first group of people that ever encouraged me to be who I felt like I was. So I really believe that I was queer. I was dating men and women. I really believed I was polyamorous. I was dating multiple people at the same time. I really believe that I was born to be a prostitute, that I was born to work in pornography and to just sell my body, because that was all I understood, but I didn't realize why. So that's why I really thought it was my identity. And I really, I was really having fun. But I feel like as church kids, like when you grow up with God, you always kind of have this little bit of conviction inside. So I remember there were some pivotal moments where like I remember thinking to myself, if I do this, there's no turning back from knowing what this is like, whether it was being with a woman or trying crystal meth for the first time. And I was like, I remember thinking, well, I'm a failure anyways. I might as well fail brilliantly. That was the justification. So I remember all of a sudden one winter, it was like December 2015. And I hadn't spoken to my mom like maybe it was a year, couple of months. I don't remember, but it was quite a while. And I just knew like, okay, I got to go back home because Christmas is my mom's favorite holiday. And the lady did push me out of her vagina. So I really should go pay my respects. So I did. And she had this friend that was staying with her 2 kids and her husband. They had been travel bloggers for, I think, a decade at that time. And they were finally settling down in New York. And so they were there for Christmas, and they were the first people of faith that ever spoke to me in a way that I didn't feel like they had a hidden agenda. that I didn't feel this, fight or flight of, oh my gosh, she's going to tell me I need Jesus again, because that was every conversation with my mom. Like, I spat at her, I cursed at her every single time she tried to reel me back in. And, it sucks to remember the kind of person that I was then. But Claudia left me with this message after she spoke to me, never judging me, always just asking questions about my life and why I chose weed, why I chose my lifestyle, why I enjoyed it. She was like, Jen, you have dreams of traveling and you want to make a financial plan. Well, I did that for 10 years. I'm willing to meet with you. I'm going to be living in Queens. So I'll be a couple train rides away. Let me know. I would love to do that for you absolutely free because I believe in your dream. And I was really impacted. I was like, oh, and this lady patient. So that winter after I met Claudia, I remember looking at my roommate and realizing like, wow, my mom finally got it. She stopped calling. Yes. You know, and everything in that winter stopped being fun. And I remember being at a party and one of my friends asked me like, what are you doing after this? And I remember feeling so empty, Jen. Like it was like, no, there's nothing for me here. I'm going home. And like, I remember I was drinking excessively. Like, I was probably packing down like, 2 Colt 45s or something a night and like smoking a lot of weed and being real sad because like all the drugs stopped working. Psychedelics turned against me. I had really bad trips. I don't know if anybody knows what ego death is. Ego death is this thing that happens when you have a bad trip where everything about you all of a sudden is like, it feels like it's disappearing or you're repulsed by it or it's gross and you're like it's like caving in on yourself and you feel like it feels like dying but you're alive and it's like so imagine like that happening for 8 hours like and I still wouldn't try to make it work because I didn't was so unaware that I was an addict and that this was not for fun anymore. This was because I was running from something. It even got to a point where and like sex stopped being fun, excessive sleeping with people, everything stopped being fun. And I started asking, I remember even my drug dealers and strangers around me, random people, my friends, like, if you could have happiness tomorrow, what does it look like? If you could have happiness tomorrow, like, what do you imagine it would look like? Or what would it feel like, And 90% of the time, people never mentioned family, but it was always a big house and a nice car. And I was like, but you can't take that with you when you die. So like, what is it really happiness? And everybody would either not know what to say or or kind of get offended and be like, I don't know, Jen, what you think? Like kind of like mad at me. And I'm like, I don't know. That's why I'm asking. So I remember just searching or like kind of like asking that question. It's just like this longing in my heart. And it's funny because I was like I became an atheist for a season. But after doing a certain amount of drugs, I remember looking at my roommate and being like, I really believe that there's got to be something bigger than me out there because I wouldn't know you. This wouldn't be happening right now. I wouldn't exist. Like, and so it was funny how like the Lord uses pretty much everything to kind of nudge us back. And I remember I was working as a nanny and I was in Tribeca. This was a celebrity family and it was the most depressing job I've ever had in my whole life. That was the job that got me to start contacting my mom again. So I called her and for the first time in a long time, just telling her about, what this job was like, that these people have not a want for anything in this world, but they lack in everything that makes this life worth living. And it was sad to watch, like they couldn't understand. And I could see why, the adults were bitter and were mean because, hurt people hurt people. So it was 2016 that I was a nanny. And at the time, I started seeing this man And he was a lot older than me. He was 39 and I was, I think, 23. And I remember like I was like, we're super casual. Like, I don't, I don't see a future with you. And I could see that he was a little bit challenged almost. Like, why not? And I had all these reasons. And I was like, I just be vibe, but not like that. We could be friends with benefits. Little did I know that this was going to be a really abusive relationship, but it was a different kind. People only hear about physical abuse. And I often say, like, I almost wish it was physical instead of psychological, because it's easier to locate a wound on your body than it is to on your brain and on your heart and on your soul and your spirit. So I started seeing him. He introduced me to crystal meth and like this state rape drug called GBL, GHB. And for people to understand the severity of that, it's like if you take a certain amount, you'll pass out and they call it G sleep. And you just won't wake up. You get slapped around, nothing will happen. You won't wake up until your body allows you to. And if you consumed a certain amount of alcohol, you just die in your sleep. So it was a really volatile relationship. And I see now that he used these drugs to kind of manipulate my mind. So the term gaslighting is used a lot, I feel like, these days. And I think people don't really understand how severe that really is. It's not this whole like, um, hey, Jen, what you said really hurt my feelings, and you kind of are just like, oh, I don't think so, like, what was it? It's not as simple as that. It's really not. It's so much more insidious, where in the beginning of our relationship, I loved that I could sing, that I was good with people, that I was good with kids. And by the end of that relationship, I had adopted how he spoke about me. That yes, I was a dumb bitch. Yes, I was a drug whore. Yes, maybe I might be a lesbian, things that were spoken over me, I suddenly was repeating back to him. And everything that I enjoyed about myself, whether it be my social skills, the friendship that I offered, and, my singing and being good with kids, he got me to question my reality. And I had like psychotic breaks with overdosing on meth a couple of times. And I was working and dating this guy at the same time. And I remember one night, it was, I think, March of 2016. I remember it was like kind of chilly. It was really beautiful out. It had a nice little like breeze. I remember the orange glow of all the lamps on the piers as I sat on that bench to smoke a cigarette and a joint and wait for my dealer. I remember sitting there thinking about my life. Like, I can't do this for more than a month or a year. Just the thought of it makes me so tired. And I really wish I had the courage to just kill myself. I remember sitting there thinking about this stuff. And I always say it was like, and I know it was the Lord, but at the time I didn't realize this, but it felt like an ice cold bucket of memories that were locked away were suddenly like thrown at my face. I'm not talking like, poured a little bit, but like, boom, like here it is. Here's the truth. And I understand now why I needed that shock value, because I made agreements with lies at such a very young age that there was it became truth. It became a fact in my spirit, in my soul. I was so entangled with it that I needed a break of time for me to truly take a step back and see the memories for what they really were. So like 4 things happened. I realized all of a sudden, oh my God, I was molested when I was a kid. 2, oh my God, I remembered this up until I was, my first year of college and I somehow forgot. 3, oh my God, everything that I am today comes from this lie that I was responsible for the things that happened to me when I was a child. So if everything that I am today comes from a lie, then who the am I? Like I remember I was like screaming, crying up and down the streets of Tribeca, like in so much pain. And I remember making this conscious decision, like I have to call somebody, I have to talk to somebody, I just have to tell somebody, I just don't know what to do. And I was crawling out of my skin. I just didn't even like, there are no words to describe that kind of pain of realizing that you've been carrying a burden that wasn't yours to carry for so long. And it felt like there was no turning back. There's no turning back from being queer. There's no turning back from the girlfriends and boyfriends that I had. There's no turning back from the knowledge that I've gained in this, world where I made sex my idol. There is no turning back. Like that's all I could think about. And I was really tormented. But the only person that I felt peace when I thought about was them. Contacting them was my mom. And I lied to her. I told her, like, oh, I'm just having a really hard time on my job. But really, I just was comforted with her presence. And really, I understand now that that was the Holy Spirit within her that I was craving and that I needed, because no one can comfort like the Father. But I could only see him as somebody who was condemning, not somebody who was wanting to love me. So I remembered, and we would think that, I would, figure it out. But it took about a month for me to tell anybody what I remembered. And the first person I told was the guy I was seeing, and he gets this close to my face. He goes, Jen, that happens to 1 in 3 kids every 4 minutes. So I don't know why you're having a problem right now. And I was like, and at that point, like I was really struggling to, he was grooming me, pushing my boundaries. So he'll play nice for an extended period of time and then do something to test my boundary and keep pushing it further and further and further. So in that point, I was like, well, if it's so normal, how come I don't feel normal about it? And he was like, well, that's why I told you to see a fucking shrink, you know? And I'm not your effing shrink, And I'm like, okay, guess maybe he's right, like and then I tell my roommate, and she has a normal person reaction, cries, asks if she could give me a hug, asks if there's something she could do. And by that point, I'm like, well, this is weird. Why is she acting like this, And it turned into a very quick descent of, like, overdosing on crystal meth a bunch of times, starting psychosis. Psychosis is like extreme paranoia, where I was convinced people were following me. I was convinced, there was cameras and like the fire alarms. I was convinced that my phone was being hacked. And like, just I couldn't carry, like, it was just not peaceful in here. I kept on, like, I couldn't carry a conversation. So during this time, good old Claudia from Christmas, she we were still in touch. I had tried to reach out to her to come up with a plan. And she she so kindly agreed to do this. And I feel so bad. But I remember I called her like maybe like in August. It was super hot. I was sitting on a stoop on the outside steps of my apartment. And we're dripping sweat. And like, our phones have like these black screens on them. So I'm like talking, but it would get all sweaty, and I'm like wiping it on myself to, like, maybe like get it to stop being so like gross. But really, I was calling a rain check with her for the 4th time because I couldn't stop doing drugs, and I was just lying and saying I was like, tired from my nanny job or something. Can we rain check? I'm sorry, blah, blah, blah. Again, irresponsible. But I remember that one particular time she asked me, Jen, there's clearly an obstacle in the way from you accomplishing your dreams. So what is the one thing that if you snapped your fingers, it would disappear and you could accomplish everything that you wanted to? And I remember it was a conversation with like the angel and the devil on my shoulder. It's crazy. It's like, you can't tell her. She's going to tell your parents. They're going to disown you. Your dad's got a bunch of guns. Something could happen. Like, all this negative stuff. And on the other side, it's like, well, what if? Because you've talked to a couple of people and you've gotten nothing. There's no answers. There's no peace. What if, So I was like, okay, fine, shut up. Like, okay, Claudia, I'll just tell you, like, because I thought to myself, I really have nothing to lose. I have no dignity at this point. So I told her, what I had remembered. And I felt like I wanted to die, but I didn't have the courage to do it. I just didn't know that there was any freedom outside of this. And I didn't think it, I didn't believe it. And I didn't tell her all the gory details of my lifestyle, but I did tell her what I remembered. And she told me that she married a man who was free from the bondage, same bondage I was experiencing, and that he is fulfilled in his life, and that that no longer defines who he is or has any hold of him. And where she found this was a place led by this woman, and her name is Danny Johnson. And she was like, I highly recommend you check out her website. Her story is really going to resonate with you. I would love to buy your ticket for you, but I ask for you to do one thing for me in exchange. And I was like, what? And she was like, you got to tell your parents what you told me. And I was like, no, 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 no. Excuse, excuse, excuse. Lie, lie, lie that I believed. And she listened to them all very patiently and was like, well, would you prefer that I came with you? Would that encourage you? And I was like, Claudia, if you're telling me that this is the only thing that's going to help me, then freaking fine. Fine. And she asked if she could pray for me. And said, I sometimes I pray in tongues. Like, is that okay? I was like, I don't even know what that means. Fine. So that was the first time I allowed somebody to pray over me. And that was the first time I really heard like tongues. And I didn't feel better. I did not, but at least there was a plan and I was hopeful, like little glimmer of hope right there. And my drug use escalated my mental everything just started crumbling so fast. It was like a quick nosedive down. And then what sucks is like I remember telling my parents. I met up with them like a month later to tell them. And I remember like being terrified. And when I finally told them, this is their response. Okay, honey, what's the next step? And I was like, are you telling me my whole life it was this easy? My whole freaking life. I was so angry. I was so angry and I couldn't understand. And so and I didn't feel better. So fast forward to October, I think it was either 9th or 10th of 2016, where I moved in with this guy, and I think I was probably like 90 pounds. And my brain was totally fried. And that we spent that whole weekend doing drugs. And I knew if I stayed here, I was going to die here. And I knew deep down inside that this person, I couldn't be around them. And when I had that conversation with him that I had to move out, he gets like super close to my face, like, where are you gonna go? Where are you gonna go? And I really didn't know what I was doing. I just knew I had to move out. I was like, I don't know. I guess I'll move into my parents' basement if they'll let me. And he gets like super close to my face again. And he's like, if you move into your parents' basement, you're gonna fucking die there. And I was like, oh, okay. Um, if I die there, that's okay, you know? And I remember, and like this is a part of my story I don't often share, but I remember like when I left, I was so addicted to how he manipulated my body and had sex with me that I even asked if he would sleep with me one more time before I left. I remember in that moment, I had so much hatred for myself. I was so disgusted with myself. I was so done. I was so, I felt so used up and dried up. I was like, okay, I have nothing. I'm ready to kill myself. That's how much hatred I had for me. And I was convinced that everybody would be fine without me. And I was just so tired. So I remember I took a bus to my friend's house where I used to live, where some of my things were still there. And I didn't even have the courage to tell her what happened, the courage to talk about what was going on. She had no idea what I was going through. And I'm like moving to make this happen. I don't even think about writing a note because I don't give a shit. Like I'm just so freaking done. And I remember inside, and I know it's the Holy Spirit now, like the inside voice has a name, And I was like, call Claudia. And I'm like, no, call Claudia. No, she's gonna make me freaking live. I don't wanna. And it was just so loud that I just called her. And I told her, I don't even remember what I said, honestly, but she, used some aggressive language. I'm like, wow, this Christian lady cursing at me right now. I gotta wake up, and was just like, call your parents, they'll come get you. Screw the job, screw where you're living. Like, you'll figure all that out tomorrow. Just leave right now. And I listened. I called my mom, and in Portuguese, I asked her, hey, I'll tell you everything tomorrow, but I think I need to come home now. And much to my shame, my whole family showed up, my two younger sisters, my parents, and not one word was said. And I remember I had such a disdain for everything in my life. I packed like this small IKEA bag that was maybe like this big with just like a couple of pairs of underwear, a couple shirts, a couple leggings, a pair or two of shoes. I think it was one pair of shoes, honestly. That's how much I was like, committed to dying. I'm like, I'm not gonna need much. So like I remember we left and I remember feeling this deep shame. Like I'm 24, moving back in with my parents, and I have to tell them about my whole life tomorrow. I like this is gonna kill them. But what about my sisters that look up to me? What about, like I'm a freaking failure. I'm a fraud. And I remember having this conversation in my mind. You can hear a pin drop in that car, by the way. No one said one word. And I remember thinking to myself in that car, like I'm just so tired, God. I need to know right now, are you fucking real or are you not? Because if I don't get a miraculous sign from you right now, I have to go. I'm so tired. I'm so tired. And I know, if you're real, that I'm tired. And then please just give me permission to leave. Don't give me a sign. Like all of this is running through my head. The moment that petition ended in my brain, that statement, the song comes on the radio, and I knew he was talking to me. I knew there was like no doubt in my mind, but because of my trust issues at the time, I was still like, okay, that was weird. I think I need one more, you know? But that song, while it was playing, I knew it was him because I had flashbacks of pivotal moments and decisions made in my life where he was standing right at my elbow, like right here. And never once forcing his hand, but always waiting patiently for my permission to hold me and to take care of me, to tell me that everything was going to be okay. And the song is Just Be Held by Casting Crowns. And the lyrics are just hold it all together. Everybody needs you strong, but life hits you out of nowhere and barely leaves you holding on. So when you're tired of fighting and chained by your control, there's freedom and surrender. So lay it down and let it go. So when you're on your knees and answers seem so far away, you're not alone. Stop holding on and just be held. Your world's not falling apart, it's falling into place. You're not alone. Stop holding on and just be held. And the rest of the lyrics really were powerful, but I remember thinking, like, this is a little too perfect for this to be a coincidence. Like, this is crazy. So I come home and I miraculously pass out. The next day, I tell my parents everything about my life. Every single detail, every story. And I cut out a lot of details just for time's sake, just for synopsis. But I was a really depraved human being. I was really freaking selfish, and the things that I chose to do, man, like I see how the Lord has protected me from so many of my decisions. By the grace of God, I wasn't trafficked. By the grace of God, I don't remember violence, like being beaten or anything, but it was really bad. And I remember the next day I told my parents everything, and it felt like release, like, okay, they know everything about me. They didn't disown me, like, like, but at the time, like I had such a lack for life that I was like, I'm gonna die anyways, whatever. I'm just telling everything. Saw a counselor, and then 4 or 5 days later, I'm on a plane to First Steps to Success. To be honest, I didn't even know that it was called First Steps to Success. Honestly, I just knew that Claudia bought me a ticket to a conference. That's pretty much it. So I had no context that I didn't even know this was a business conference. So I show up in like a t-shirt, leggings, some holographic fans, half-shaved head, no, and I'm like, what in the world is happening? Everyone's smiling. It's all white people. They're all in suits. Like I'm just like, what the frick am I doing here? And I remember like I did have such a judgment towards her. Like I looked at her website over the summer and I was like, what is this corny ass shit? Like I was just like, this lady can't solve my problems. This lady, like, that's so corny. Oh, like I was just so like, ugh. But I was judging because I had such a lack. Like, I was so selfish. All I could do is judge other people and myself. And so I go and I'm chain smoking cigarettes all day, like crying periodically. And I'm just like freaking out, like, okay, God, if you don't show up, like, I'm done. Like, I really can't do this anymore. I really don't see how I could get out of anything that I've done. Cause I like dropped my job. I dropped my friends. Like, nobody knew where I went. I like left without telling anybody. I think I told one or two people. That was it. And so I'm sitting there and I tried to leave 3 times the day before the event starts. And the third time, I remember there was like, I was sharing a room with 5 other women and it was lights out at 10 and ladies are snoring. I'm laying on this hard ass hotel floor. I didn't know I was supposed to bring an air mattress or anything with some blankets and a pillow. And I'm looking at it like, what is this sad ass shit? Like, what am I doing here? And I hear a knock at the door because I was texting my mom, like, I just want to leave. Just help me leave. And I realized, oh, it must be the last roommate. So I opened the door, instant friendship. We talked until like 1 or 2 in the morning. I told her what my life was like up until 5 days ago. And she looks at me and she's like, you are meant to be here. This is for you. And you better stay. And I got you. The Lord brought you here. He has ordained your steps. You're meant. This is designed for you. And I was like, whoa, okay, you're really intense. Like, I guess you must be right. Like, let me just try it out because I enjoy your company. You're really cool. So I remember sitting in those seats, and that music comes on for the 60-second countdown or something. And I'm like cringing inside, like this is so cheesy. I can't even. And then and then this lady comes on the stage. And I remember at the first bathroom break, I'm like crying. Like this lady just violated me with the decisions of my life. But I know that there's something here. And I know, God, that you're real. You really are. And thank you for confirming that for me. And okay, I'll try holding on a little bit longer. And it was like these small deals, like hold on a little bit longer, a little bit longer, a little bit longer. And then after these events that I went to, I'm telling you, like, I can't believe what my life is, It's been 4.5 years since I started going. And I'm so grateful. Like, I never believed that, my relationship with my parents is completely restored. I probably call my mom like every other day. I no longer live in New York. Me and my family were awesome. I pretty much don't have any debt, I want to say, but the Lord's been so faithful. Like my relationship with him has so grown to the point where like I left New York because he told me to. Like he basically said, Jen, you can't stay here in New York. I'm like, but where are we going? Where are we going? I don't get it. And it hasn't been an easy journey because I've relapsed. I have relapsed in, various different aspects of my life, but I have not ever stopped choosing him. And it's led me to this point where all of a sudden, he's using me in such a way that I never imagined I was capable of. Whether it's, helping people learn how to communicate better with each other, because there's a lot of parents contacting me to, how do I talk to my kid? Help me. How do I talk to my kid? Like, what worked for you? How does it, I'm talking to them. I'm at the safe house Monday through Friday, helping these women go through what they need to go through and using everything that I learned at Danny and everything that's in the Bible. Like everything she teaches is in the Bible. So the more that I learned from him, the more like I get to share that with them. And writing this book only because, I didn't want to do anything great with my life the first 3 years I was in Danny Johnson. I was hiding. I was like, no one can know me. No one can know my face. No one can know because he's going to find me. All this stuff is going to happen. Like, all I could think about was worst case scenarios. And I was being really selfish again. And I realized as I continue to share this, how encouraged people were in their journey with God, in having faith in him, in who he is in our lives, that he is the performer of miracles. And I remember my mom, she says this sometimes, like we'll pray together sometimes. She's like, Jen, I still cannot believe that when I was on my hands and knees praying for your life, that he would ever bring you back to such a capacity. I didn't have any concept for how great his blessing could be. All I asked was for you to know him, but not for you to pursue him in such a way that you are today. And I'm like, oh, mom, you know? So, and I'm fighting for people's freedom because I was a slave for such a long time to lies that I'm like, I'm freaking done. No more. And I see it all around me. And every once in a while, like the Lord like shows me another thing that I'm like believing in that is such a lie. And I'm like, no, freedom. That's why I'm like raw. And I like, maybe I'll cuss a little bit, sorry, folks. But that's who I was, that I don't want to censor any part of it, because to censor it, I feel like is dishonoring to even the people around me. Cause it's like, oh, I'm assuming you can't handle the truth of what God has done in my life, and what he's shared with me. So, and because I've definitely done that, I was afraid that, oh, child molestation's too much for people. So let me just say something traumatic happened, And it's like, it does a disservice, because if someone's actually going through that, they don't realize that they could talk about it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm never going to forget Daddy being like, you need to lead by example. This is for you, not for anybody else. You're not supposed to be bringing this home and trying to teach people around you to live it. And I was like, so convicted, like, okay, how do I just be it? I just want to be it. What do I expect from the people around me? I should be expecting more of that out of me. Wow. And slowly but surely, people would always just be asking me, so when are you writing a book? When are you writing a book? When are you writing a book? And I'm like, oh my gosh, oh, shut up. Like, I'm just like, I don't want to. And I'm like, Lord, give me an obedient heart. Create me a clean heart to be obedient to what you're telling me. You saved my life. How could I just hide that? How could I just keep that away? And you've done something amazing, and you're still doing more amazing things. Like, the story's not over. I'm only 28. You know what I mean? Like, I have my whole life ahead of me. And I could sit here and feel bad about like, oh, I didn't make $1 million. Oh, my book's not done yet. Oh, other people are writing books, But it's just like, comparison is the thief of all joy. Why compare? I see how if you want to talk to me, I see how perfectly like his timing is, that there was this ordained season for being in hiding in secret. There was an ordained season for taking leaps of faith. There was an ordained season for me to relapse, to really press into my faith. That he uses everything for his glory. He really does make beauty out of things that you think are the most horrific, awful things. He uses all of it to create a masterpiece. And it is the most glorious thing to be a part of. So if I could put that on the book to encourage anybody, he left the 99 for the one. Why am I not doing the same?
Yes, friend.
So this book is not for thousands of people. It's for the one person that needs to be freed from the chains of their past and from lies that are holding them captive, or not holding them captive. That's a lie too. From the lies that they made agreements with that they don't realize. Just open the door to that cage, hon. You could leave. You don't have to live there anymore. So,
wow, friend.
Yeah.
I just have to say, it's not often that when someone shares their story that I'm left speechless. Like I have felt that so many times in listening to you share your story, because it's so powerful and you're so aware of the entire journey. For someone who has come from a place of having so many thoughts that were choking you to death, that you're so aware now of the entire journey, what's been happening, and you are leading now by example. You are leading with authenticity and a genuineness and a raw and realness that the world is craving for, that the very people who you used to be are desperate for, and they're at the end of their rope for. I think it's so beautiful that this woman, this friend of yours, Claudia, just started speaking vision into your life, started speaking into who you were and what was ahead for you. She accepted you where you were at, and she just
Yeah.
started speaking life into your dreams, into nothing else. She just spoke life into your dreams, and it dropped a seed. It dropped a seed of love and acceptance from the Father that then started to create this ripple effect through so many other moments in your life where you started to see him. It started to create a continued interest for, what is that? I want that. Maybe this
Yes.
isn't the end.
Mm.
What if? What
Well,
if I
that's
went towards that?
yeah.
And look at this entire now journey towards healing and freedom and mastering your own thoughts, getting to the root of those thoughts that has now set you free. So now you're equipped. Now you know how to deal with your thoughts and kick to the curb the ones that you don't want, the ones that are causing poison to your very spirit and the very future that you desire to have. I'm so freaking proud of you. So freaking proud of you, friend. You're not just an overcomer, you are an inspirer. And your future, holy crap, friends, you're going to be leading so many more people to freedom. People who are desperate for it. And you already are.
Back to the OG, because I wouldn't be here without him, that's for sure. And in all meanings of that phrase.
Yeah. Well, I know that there's a lot of people who are listening today that can relate to a lot of the stuff that you shared. So I want to ask you two specific questions. And first, that question is, I know that there's an organization that you care about. And when people hear stories like this, they're wondering, how can I help? How can I come beside people who have overcome and they really want to help people? You are one of those people. So how can people come alongside you and help?
The House of Cherith. I currently work there Monday through Friday. It's the safe house that I work at. I'm an RSA, a resident staff advisor, AKA house mom. So I work very closely with these women to make sure that they have someone to talk to, that they have their needs taken care of, they take their medication. So if you could visit their website to make a donation or follow them on Instagram, I think it's House of Cherith ATL, or if you just look at it. So it'll be linked there if you could take a visit to that. And also for my beautiful friend Claudia, who the Lord used as the first step in taking me out of that rut. She's a real estate in Queens. If you could hit her up, if you're there, totally. She's awesome, great talker, great conversationalist, and she's amazing at what she does. I mean, she really set the example, and I use it to this day, of what it means to love people well and to not have an agenda. Because I feel like we're often taught that as people of Jesus, that we have to tell people about Jesus. Well, if they didn't ask, how do you show them? And she really, really showed me that, and it changed my life. And she's done various jobs, great business person. I still ask her for advice. So if you could give her a shout out, that'd be awesome.
Absolutely. Absolutely. An amazing friend. And wow, if we only all had friends like that, just simply cared. And that's the one feeling that they left you with. This person really cares about me.
Yeah.
So good. So my last question for you is, so again, people are listening and they might have suffered through a lot of the things that you shared. Maybe they're currently stuck in that season. Maybe they don't know how to come out of that dark place. Maybe they're dealing with the same thoughts that you have had. What one thing would you say to that person right now?
That you're so loved. You're so loved. You may not see that right now, but don't give up. Keep pushing forward. Keep going, because there is a creator that is cheering you on. The heavens are cheering you on. We get this one life on this earth. And there's so many moments in my life that I see. If I gave up in that 1 second, today wouldn't be here. This conversation wouldn't be happening. You know, my life wouldn't be filled with peace, redemption, joy, love, satisfaction, peaceful sleep, sobriety, like freedom. I would not know what that feels like if I gave up in that 1 second. And you're worthy of actually feeling those things. And I ask in Jesus' name that that's happening right now, that you're deposited with the Holy Spirit right now and feeling his peace and feeling his love, feeling that warmth to know that you can make it another day. You can make it another week. You can make it another year. I believe in you. I may not know you, but I believe in you. If I could do it, you can definitely do it. That's what I always say.
So good, friend. Thank you for painting that picture of what is on the other side. What is on the other side of surrender? And you know what? There's a God that is wanting to walk with you through every step of that. Amazing. Amazing. So, as we just wrap up the interview, I just want to thank you so much, Jenn, for being here with us today. Thank you for your courage. Thank you for your love for other people. Thank you for your heart for others. Thank you for your heart specifically for people who are hurting and they're desperate. Thank you for your love for your mom and your family. Thank you for sharing so vulnerably and authentically that I know it is going to be crazy impactful for people who desperately needed to hear it. You're amazing. And I'm so honored to know you and call you a friend and a fellow overcomer.
Woo! And thank you, Jenn, for starting the Overcomers. We need more stories of overcoming, of light, of joy,
Yes.
and of the goodness of this world. And you shine super bright, girl. So
do you, friend. And it's an honor to be carrying that light with you.
Yeah.
What the Father has done and can do in your life.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wasn't that powerful? Do you have an overcomer story? Do you know someone who needs to hear this message? Please share this video on your social platforms and tag us so we know who you are. Stay tuned as we share more overcomer stories in the weeks ahead. We're looking for you. We're looking for the overcomers. Join us. Let's come together as the overcomers. Start sharing your story. We have multiple ways you can start getting involved and repping the movement, repping your story of what he has done in your life. For example, we've got journals. You can start writing your story down. Start getting it out of your head and on paper. We've got bracelets. Start repping that we're a group that are coming together to inspire people. We've got t-shirts and sweatshirts to not only remind yourself that you're filled with gold, but everybody around you, that your story is powerful. And don't forget, you can pick up a copy of Finding His Voice on Amazon, An Overcomer's Journey from Suicide to Success, An Overcomer's Journey which launched this very movement. And last but not least, if you want to learn how to overcome, visit www.dannyjohnson.com. That's my coach, and that's where I learned how to overcome. Thank you so much for joining with us today. We believe in you, and we believe in the power of story. We believe in your story.